Welcome home. We tell the stories of African resilience, family secrets, and the poetic justice that life serves us. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from today? Let's see which city is representing the strongest. Now let's go to Nairobi. The rain is falling. The deal is on the table. But the real story is hidden in the shadows. My name is Jackson Kirubi. In Kenya, they call me the architect. I built half the skyline of Nairobi, and I own the cement that built the other half. I am a man who commands respect, who buys solutions, and who never, ever loses. But on that gloomy Tuesday morning, sitting in the corner of a Java House cafe in Westlands, I was a desperate man. Outside, the Nairobi rain was relentless, turning the streets into rivers of mud and traffic. Inside, the cafe was warm and buzzing with the morning rush, businessmen shouting into phones, students typing on laptops. But I sat in a bubble of silence and panic. I had exactly 45 minutes. At 10 a.m., the Ministry of Water would open the bids for the new national purification system. It was a contract worth 50 billion shillings, $500 million USD. My company, Kirubi Corp., was the frontrunner except for one fatal flaw. Our filtration formula was unstable. In the high heat of Mombasa or Kisumu, my chemical mixture would break down. If I couldn't fix the chemical ratio before the meeting, my rival, a snake named Caleb Omondi, would swoop in with his inferior product and take everything. Damn it! I hissed, slamming my hand on the table. My expensive tablet rattled. The papers spread out before me, complex chemical diagrams, blurred before my tired eyes. I had fired 3 scientists this morning. I was running on caffeine and rage. More coffee, sir? I didn't look up. I waved my hand dismissively. Just pour it and go. I am busy trying to save an empire here. The waitress hesitated. I saw her reflection in the dark window, young, exhausted, with a swollen belly that pushed against her tight green uniform. Her face was puffy, her eyes rimmed with dark circles. She looked like the kind of person who counts every single shilling. She poured the coffee. But she didn't leave. You are stuck on the oxidation level, she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, but it cut through the noise of the espresso machine. I looked up, annoyed. Excuse me? She pointed a rough, work-worn finger at my open notebook. The formula for the filtration. You are trying to use chlorine dioxide. It's too volatile. That's why your budget is too high. You need to bind it with a silver ion catalyst. I stared at her. I laughed, a harsh, cruel sound that made a nearby couple look over. Listen to me, girl. This is a billion-dollar problem. Do you think because you serve coffee to rich men you understand chemical engineering? Go clean a table. She looked hurt. She bit her lip, and her hand instinctively went to her stomach, soothing the unborn baby. But she didn't back down. I don't just serve coffee, sir, she whispered. I was a top student at JKUAT University before my father died and the fees became too much. If you add the silver ion, the cost drops by 40%. And the water stays pure for twice as long. She grabbed a paper napkin from the dispenser. With a shaking hand, she wrote down a complex chain of symbols. She pushed it toward me. Try it, she said, her voice trembling. Please. Just look. I looked at the napkin. I scoffed. But out of sheer desperation, I pulled up my simulation software on the tablet. I punched in her numbers. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. Simulation complete. Stability, 100%. Cost efficiency, optimal. She was right. My God, the girl was right. I grabbed my phone. I dialed my chief engineer, shouting over the noise of the cafe. Change the bid. Use the silver ion structure. Yes, I have the formula. Submit it now. We are going to crush Caleb. I hung up, breathing hard. The adrenaline was rushing through me like a drug. I had done it. I had clinched the deal. The $500 million was mine. I looked up. The waitress was wiping a nearby table now, moving slowly, wincing as she bent down to pick up a dropped spoon. I felt a surge of triumph. I also felt a twinge of charity. I stood up, buttoning my Italian suit jacket. I walked over to her. You, I said. She straightened up, looking frightened. Did I disturb you, sir? I'm sorry. You just made me a very rich man, I said. I pulled out my alligator skin wallet. I took out every note I had, about 50,000 shillings, approximate $400. To me it was lunch money. To her, I assumed it was a fortune. I shoved it into her apron pocket. Here. For the baby. She looked at the money, eyes widening. Sir, I cannot take this. Take it, I said, my voice cold and authoritative. You have a brain. It's a waste to see you wiping tables. But business is business. Thank you for the coffee. I didn't ask her name. I didn't ask why a genius was working as a waitress. I didn't ask if she had a place to sleep. I was Jackson Kirubi and I had a victory to claim. I turned and walked out into the rain, feeling invincible. My driver, Kamau, was waiting with the black Mercedes S-Class at the curb. He opened the door with a bow. To the ministry, Kamau. We have a contract to sign. Yes, mzee. I slid into the plush leather seat. As the car pulled away, weaving through the Nairobi traffic, I opened my briefcase to put my notebook away. That's when I saw it. A small, battered textbook titled Advanced Organic Chemistry. It must have been hers. She must have left it on the table when she was clearing the cups, and in my rush, I had swept it into my bag along with my files. I chuckled, shaking my head. Smart girl. Maybe I should hire her as an intern next year. I opened the book, intending to see if her name was inside so I could have my secretary return it. There was a bookmark in the middle. It wasn't a piece of paper. It was a photograph. An old, crinkled Polaroid from the 1990s. My smile vanished. The blood drained from my face, leaving me cold despite the humid air. The photo showed a young mechanic with grease on his face, holding a wrench like a trophy, standing in front of a tin shack in the Mathar slums. Beside him was a woman with a smile that could light up the dark streets. A woman wearing a bright yellow kanga. The mechanic was me. 25 years ago. And the woman was Wanjiku. My first love. The only woman I had ever truly loved. The woman I had promised to marry before I got a scholarship to London and never looked back. I turned the photo over. The handwriting was neat, scientific. Dad and Mom. 1999. Mom says he is building the world so he had no time to build a home with us. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. The book fell from my lap onto the floor of the Mercedes. The timeline. The intelligence. The eyes I hadn't bothered to look into. That waitress. The pregnant girl I had just tipped like a beggar and left behind in a cafe to scrub floors. She wasn't just a smart girl. She was my daughter. My heart stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had a child. A child who was struggling, hungry, and working on her feet while carrying my grandchild. And I, the great Jackson Kirubi, I had walked away. Camille. I screamed, a sound of pure panic tearing from my throat. Sir? Kamau looked in the rearview mirror, startled. Stop the car. Damn it, stop the car. But sir, the ministry. Forget the contract. Turn around. Go back to the Java house. Now. The car tires screeched on the wet asphalt as Kamau swerved, horns blaring around us. I stared out the rain-streaked window, clutching the photo to my chest. Please be there, I prayed, tears stinging my eyes for the first time in 20 years. Please don't be gone. The ride back to my headquarters in Upper Hill was a blur of neon lights and regret. I sat in the back of the Mercedes, staring at the photo of Wanjiku. I promised you we would make it, I whispered to the smiling woman in the picture. And instead, I left you to struggle while I ate from golden plates. I needed help. I couldn't call the police. If the media found out that Jackson Kirubi, the family man of Kenyan industry, had a secret illegitimate child living in poverty, the scandal would destroy everything. The vultures, especially Caleb Omondi, would tear me apart. I needed a ghost. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number that wasn't saved in my contacts. It rang once. Yes, mzee, a deep, gravelly voice answered. Odieno, I said, my voice cracking. Meet me at the office. Clear the floor. I don't want secretaries. I don't want cleaners. Just you. Is it a body, sir? Odieno asked calmly. No, I said, closing my eyes. It's a life. 30 minutes later, I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse office in the Britam Tower. The city of Nairobi lay below me, a sprawling grid of lights. Usually, looking at it made me feel like a god. Today it made me feel small. The heavy oak door clicked open. Odieno walked in. He was a mountain of a man, my head of security and my oldest confidant. He was ex-GSU General Service Unit, a man who had seen the darkest corners of this country. He wore a black suit that struggled to contain his muscles, and his eyes missed nothing. You missed the signing at the ministry, Odieno said, locking the door behind him. The minister is furious. Caleb Omondi is already spreading rumors that you had a heart attack. Let them talk, I snapped. I turned around and threw the wet chemistry textbook onto my glass desk. It landed with a heavy, wet thud. Odieno looked at the book, then at me. He saw the wild look in my eyes. What is this? Open it. Look at the bookmark. Odieno stepped forward. He opened the book with careful, steady hands. He looked at the photo of me and Wanjiku. He didn't blink. He didn't gasp. He just nodded slowly, a flicker of recognition passing through his stoic face. Wanjiku, he said softly. The girl from Mathar. The one you used to write letters to in London. Before the letters stopped. She had a child, Odieno, I whispered, sinking into my leather chair. A daughter. I met her today. At the cafe. Odieno looked up sharply. The waitress? The one you mentioned on the phone? Yes. I looked her in the eye, Odieno. She was brilliant. She fixed the formula for the water project on a napkin. And I treated her like a beggar. I tipped her and sent her away. I buried my face in my hands. She is pregnant. She is sick. And she has disappeared into Kibera. Odieno placed the photo down gently. He pulled out a black notebook and a pen. He switched instantly from friend to operative. This was the way forward. We have a problem, Jackson, Odieno said, his voice level. If she is in Kibera, finding her is like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach. And we have enemies. I don't care about enemies. You should, Odieno countered. Caleb Omondi has spies everywhere. If he finds out you have a vulnerable daughter, he will use her. He will kidnap her to force you to sign over the company. We cannot be loud. We cannot use the police. We must be silent. I looked up, fear gripping my heart. I hadn't thought of that. Caleb was ruthless. If he knew Njeri existed, she was a target. So what is the plan? I asked. How do we find her without alerting the wolves? Odieno began to pace the room. We use the digital footprint. Did you get her phone number? No, I groaned. Okay. The Java House manager. I will pay him a visit tonight. I will get her employment file. It will have a copy of her ID and a next of kin. She said her father died, I muttered. She meant me. It will have an address, Odieno continued. Once we have the ID number, I have a contact at Safaricom. We can triangulate her phone signal. If she has it on, we can find her within 10 meters. Do it, I said, standing up. Pay whatever you have to pay. Bribe whoever you have to bribe. There is one more thing, Odieno said, stopping in front of me. Jackson, you must be prepared. For what? For her to reject you, Odieno said brutally. You abandoned her mother. You abandoned her. You are a billionaire living in the sky and she is cleaning floors. She might not want your help. She might hate you. The truth of his words cut deep. I don't care if she hates me, Odieno. I just want to make sure she is alive. I want to make sure my grandchild is safe. Understood. Odieno turned to leave. I will get the team ready. 2 SUVs. Unmarked. We go into Kibera tonight. Just as Odieno reached for the door handle, the intercom on my desk buzzed loudly. The red light flashed. I frowned. I told security no interruptions. Odieno moved his hand toward his waist, where I knew he kept a concealed weapon. He pressed the speaker button. Yes. Odieno barked. The shaky voice of the night guard came through. Sir. Mr. Odieno, there is a woman here. She is causing a scene in the lobby. She is refusing to leave. Throw her out, I said impatiently. I am busy. Sir, she says she knows you. She says her name is Mama Sarah. She says she has something that belongs to you. My blood ran cold. Mama Sarah. Wanjiku's older sister. The woman who used to chase me away with a broom when I came to visit Wanjiku late at night. Let her up, I whispered. Jackson, it could be a trap, Odieno warned. Let her up. I roared. We waited in silence. The minutes felt like hours. Finally, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open. 2 security guards stepped out, escorting an elderly woman. She wore a faded kanga wrapped around her head and worn-out sandals. Her face was lined with years of hardship, but her eyes were burning with a fierce, terrifying anger. She marched into my office, ignoring the luxury, ignoring the view. She walked straight up to me. Hello, Sarah, I said, my voice trembling. Thwack. Her hand connected with my cheek. A slap that echoed through the penthouse. Odieno flinched but didn't intervene. You call yourself a man? Sarah spat, tears streaming down her face. You sit here in your glass castle while your blood bleeds into the dirt? I didn't know, Sarah, I pleaded, holding my stinging cheek. I swear I didn't know about the child. You didn't want to know, she screamed. She reached into her bag. My heart stopped. Was it a weapon? She pulled out a small blood-stained baby blanket. She threw it onto my desk, right on top of the chemistry textbook. Njeri came to me an hour ago, Sarah sobbed, her anger breaking into grief. She was in labor. Premature. The stress, the work, it was too much for her body. Where is she? I grabbed Sarah's shoulders. Where is my daughter? Sarah looked at me with cold, dead eyes. She is at the clinic in Kibera. The doctors say she is losing too much blood. They say they can save the baby, or the mother. But not both. The world tilted on its axis. The $500 million deal, the company, the reputation, it all dissolved into ash. Otieno, I said, my voice low and terrifying. Get the chopper. Sir, we can't land a helicopter in Kibera at night, Otieno warned. Then landed on the roof of the clinic. I screamed. We're going. Now. I looked at Sarah. I'm coming. I am going to save them both. She shook her head. You better pray, Jackson. Because if she dies tonight, your money will not be able to bury the guilt. The blades of the Savannah King, my agonizingly expensive Airbus helicopter, chopped through the heavy Nairobi rain, creating a deafening roar that vibrated in my chest. We were rising above the Britam Tower, leaving the sanctuary of wealth and power, and banking hard toward the south. Toward the darkness. Inside the leather-clad cabin, the atmosphere was suffocating. The interior lights were dimmed, casting long, grotesque shadows across our faces. I sat facing Mama Sarah. She was strapped into the plush beige seat, looking entirely out of place in her faded kanga and worn cardigan. She didn't look impressed by the luxury. She looked at the polished wood trim and the champagne cooler with a mixture of disgust and sorrow. To her, this machine wasn't a symbol of success, it was a symbol of the theft of my soul. Otieno sat by the door, his headset on, communicating with the pilot and the ground team. He was checking his firearm, a Glock 19, sliding it back into its holster. The click was audible even over the engine. 2 minutes to the LZ landing zone, Otieno said, his voice crackling through the headset I had forced Sarah to wear. The pilot says the visibility is near zero. We are landing at the Laney Saba football pitch. It's the only open space close to the clinic. I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. I looked out the window. Below us, the glittering skyscrapers of Upper Hill gave way to the black void of the slums. From up here, Kibera usually looked like a blanket of rust. Tonight, in the storm, it looked like an ocean of mud threatening to swallow the city whole. You are afraid, Sarah said. Her voice was thin through the headset, but it carried the weight of a judge passing sentence. I looked at her. I am terrified, Sarah. If she dies. If she dies, it is because you starved her, Sarah cut in, her eyes hard. Not of food, but of a father. I didn't know. I yelled, my frustration boiling over. Why didn't Wanjiku tell me? I wrote letters. I sent money in the beginning. The money stopped coming when you met that politician's daughter in London, Sarah shot back. And the letters? Wanjiku burned them. She said she wouldn't raise a child on the crumbs of a man's guilty conscience. She wanted a father, Jackson, not a donor. I flinched. The truth was a knife and Sarah was twisting it. I remembered that time, the heady rush of my first million, the new friends, the parties in Mayfair. I had convinced myself that Wanjiku was past. I had convinced myself I had outgrown her. She named her in Jerry, Sarah continued, looking out into the rain. After your mother. Did you know that? Even after you broke her heart, she honored your lineage. Tears pricked my eyes. In Jerry. My mother's name. A name that meant wealth or traveler depending on how you said it. Is she like Wanjiku? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She has Wanjiku's heart, Sarah said, turning to face me. But she has your brain. That dangerous, restless brain. She reads chemistry books by candlelight. She solves math problems on the back of receipts. She wanted to be an engineer. But when Wanjiku got sick with cancer 2 years ago, and Jerry sold everything, she dropped out. She waited tables. She scrubbed toilets. All to pay for her mother's chemo. My stomach turned. I had billions in offshore accounts. I had cars I had never driven. And my daughter had scrubbed toilets to save the woman I loved, while I did nothing. And the baby? I asked. Who is the father? Sarah scoffed. A boy from the university. When the money ran out, he ran out. Just like you. The helicopter banked sharply, dropping altitude. The G-force pressed me into my seat. Brace for impact, Otieno warned. The ground is unstable. We descended into the chaos. The landing was violent. The downwash from the rotors whipped the corrugated iron roofs of the nearby shacks, sending sheets of metal rattling. Mud sprayed up against the windows. People were scattering, shielding their eyes from the floodlights of the chopper. We touched down with a heavy thud in the center of the muddy football pitch. Otieno threw the door open. The noise of the slum rushed in, shouting, barking dogs, the roar of the rain, and the whine of the dying engine. "Move!" Otieno shouted. "We cannot stay here. The crowd is forming." I unbuckled and jumped out. My Italian loafers sank instantly into 6 inches of sewage and mud. The rain soaked my tuxedo in seconds. "This way," Otieno commanded, engaging a high-powered flashlight. 2 more of my security men who had arrived by SUV materialized from the darkness, surrounding us. "Where is the clinic?" I shouted over the wind. "Down the alley. 300 meters." Sarah yelled, pulling her kanga tight around her head. She moved faster than me, navigating the treacherous, slippery path with the muscle memory of someone who had lived here for decades. We ran. I slipped, my knee smashing into a jagged rock, tearing my suit trousers. I didn't feel the pain. I only felt the panic. We wove through the narrow corridors of Kibera. The smell was overwhelming, a mix of charcoal smoke, rotting garbage, and wet earth. People peered out from behind plastic sheets, their eyes wide at the sight of the Mzungu suit and the armed guards. We reached a concrete building with a faded sign, Tumani Community Clinic. It wasn't a hospital. It was a bunker. We burst through the metal doors. The inside was chaotic. It was a single large room divided by hanging sheets. The floor was concrete, stained and cracked. It smelled of bleach and iron, the smell of blood. A man in a white coat, stained red, looked up from a table in the corner. He looked exhausted, his glasses fogged up. This was the doctor. "Who are you?" he shouted. "Get out. We have a crisis here." "I am Jackson Kirubi," I announced, stepping into the light. "I am the father." The doctor paused. The name registered. Everyone in Kenya knew the name. He looked at my muddy suit, my bleeding knee, and then at Mama Sarah. "You are too late," the doctor said, his voice shaking. "We lost power 10 minutes ago. The generator is out of fuel. I am operating by torchlight." "Where is she?" I demanded, pushing past him. "Sir, you cannot go in there." I ripped the curtain aside. The world stopped. Lying on a narrow, rusted bed was the waitress. Njeri. She looked small. So incredibly small. Her skin, which had been a rich mahogany in the cafe, was now a terrifying shade of gray. Her uniform had been cut away, replaced by a hospital gown that was soaked in blood. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow and ragged. "Njeri," I whispered. I fell to my knees beside the bed. I took her hand. It was cold. Rough from work, but cold. "Is she?" I couldn't finish the sentence. The doctor appeared behind me. "She is in eclampsia shock. Her blood pressure spiked, caused a seizure. The placenta has detached. She is bleeding out internally. Do a C-section." I screamed, turning on him. "Get the baby out. Stop the bleeding." "I can't," the doctor yelled back, throwing his hands up. "Look around you, Mr. Billionaire. I have no anesthesia. I have no suction. I have no electricity. If I cut her open now in the dark, she dies of shock. If I wait, the baby suffocates." He pointed to a small, archaic fetal monitor running on a battery. The beep was slow. Beep, beep, beep. "The baby's heart rate is dropping," the doctor said grimly. "We have to make a choice. I can give her a drug to stabilize her heart, which might kill the baby. Or I can induce labor violently to save the baby, which will likely kill her from blood loss." "No," I said, shaking my head. "No choice. Save them both." "I am not God," the doctor snapped. "I am a man with a flashlight and a scalpel. I need blood. She is O negative. Universal donor but rare. We have none in the fridge." "O negative," I repeated. I stood up. I ripped off my tuxedo jacket. I rolled up the sleeve of my silk shirt, popping the diamond cufflinks. "I am O negative," I said. The doctor stared at me. "Are you sure?" "I am her father," I said, my voice trembling with a ferocious intensity. "I am O negative. Take it. Take all of it." The doctor hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Nurse, prep a transfusion line. Direct to direct. We don't have time to bag it." "Otieno," I barked. "Sir?" Otieno stepped forward from the shadows. "The generator," I ordered. "Get it running. Now." "Sir, if it's out of fuel?" "Siphon the fuel from the helicopter. Siphon it from the SUVs. I don't care if you have to burn cash to make a fire. Get me power." Otieno nodded and sprinted out the door. I sat on a metal stool next to Njeri's bed. The nurse, a young woman with terrified eyes, swabbed my arm. She inserted a thick needle into my vein. A tube ran from my arm, through a simple pump and into Njeri's arm. I watched my blood, the blood of a billionaire, the blood that had signed billion-dollar deals, flow through the plastic tube. It was dark and rich. It entered her thin, pale arm. "Come on, Njeri," I whispered, leaning close to her ear. "Take it. You are strong. You are a fighter. You stood up to me in the boardroom. Do not let go now." The room was silent except for the rain hammering on the tin roof and the slow beep, beep, of the monitor. Suddenly Njeri stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. She let out a low moan of pain. "Njeri?" Mama Sarah pressed closer, holding her other hand. "Njeri, Auntie is here." Her eyes opened. They were glassy, unfocused. She looked around the dimly lit room, panic setting in. The baby?" She gasped, her voice barely a scratch. "The baby is fighting," I said. She turned her head. She looked at me. Confusion clouded her face. "You?" she whispered. "The man, from the cafe. The rude man." "Yes," I said, tears spilling down my face mixing with the mud. "The rude man. I'm sorry, Njeri. I am so sorry." "Why?" She winced, clutching her stomach as a contraction hit her. "Why are you here? Did I forget to wipe a table?" The innocence of the question broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Even dying, she thought she was in trouble. "No, my child," I said, choking on the words. "You are not a waitress. You are not a servant. You are a queen. You are my daughter." She stared at me. The words hung in the humid air. "Daughter?" she breathed. "My father is dead." "No," Mama Sarah intervened softly. "He was lost, Njeri. But he has found his way back. This is Jackson, your father." Njeri looked at the tube running from my arm to hers. She saw the blood connecting us. The biological bridge that had been broken for 25 years was finally rebuilt. "You left us," she whispered, a single tear sliding into her ear. "We waited." "I know," I sobbed. "I was a fool. A blind, greedy fool. But I am here now. And I am not leaving. I promise you on my life I am not leaving." Suddenly the monitor let out a high-pitched warning. "Beep beep beep. She is crashing," the doctor yelled. "Her pressure is bottoming out. The baby is in distress." "The power!" I screamed. "Where is the power?" As if on command, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then, with a roar of an engine outside, the clinic flooded with bright, harsh fluorescent light. Otieno had done it. The hum of machinery kicked in. The suction machine gurgled. The lights above the operating table buzzed to life. "We have power," the doctor shouted. "Get her on the table. We operate now." They grabbed the sheets. I had to rip the needle from my arm, blood spraying onto my shirt, to let them move her. "Wait." Njeri grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Her grip was iron. "Njeri, let go, they have to save the baby," I pleaded. "Promise me," she gasped, her eyes locking onto mine with a terrifying intensity. "Anything. If I don't make it." She winced, her body arching in pain. "The formula. The water formula. It wasn't just for the money. It was for the people here. In Kibera. Promise me you will build it. Promise me you will give them clean water." Even in death she was thinking of others. She was thinking of the very people the world ignored. She was more of a leader in that hospital bed than I had ever been in a boardroom. "I promise," I said. "I will build it. I will name it after you. Now let go." Her hands slipped from mine. They wheeled her behind a glass partition. The doctor scrubbed up in seconds. I stood there holding my bleeding arm, watching through the glass. Mama Sarah stood beside me, praying in Kikuyu. "Kainai, Wathani. Oh God. Lord." I saw the doctor raise the scalpel. I saw the first cut. Then chaos. Blood erupted. Too much blood. The monitor began to scream a solid, flat tone. "Beep. Cardiac arrest," the doctor shouted. "Start compressions. Get the paddles." "No." I pressed my hands against the glass. "No, no, no. We are losing her," the nurse screamed. "Get the baby out," the doctor ordered. I watched in horror as they pulled a tiny, purple infant from her body. The baby wasn't crying. It was silent. The doctor handed the baby to a nurse and immediately turned back to Njeri. He placed the defibrillator paddles on her chest. "Clear." Thump. Her body jerked. The line on the monitor stayed flat. Again. "Charge to 200. Clear." Thump. Nothing. The nurse was in the corner, rubbing the baby vigorously. Come on, little one. Breathe. I looked from my daughter, who was lying still with her chest cut open, to my grandchild, who was silent and blue. Silence. The most terrifying silence I had ever heard. Then, a sound. A small, weak cry. Wah. The baby. The baby was alive. But the doctor had stopped compressions on Njeri. He lowered his head. He looked at the clock on the wall. He turned slowly to look at me through the glass. He shook his head. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the dirty concrete floor of the clinic, the sound of my own scream drowning out the thunder outside. I had all the money in the world. I had bought the power. I had given the blood. And I had still lost. The sound of a flatline is not just a noise. It is a wall. It is an invisible, impenetrable barrier that slams down between the living and the dead, separating the world of breath and sunlight from the world of silence. Beep. That sound tore through the humid, blood-scented air of the Timani clinic, louder than the thunder rattling the tin roof, louder than the chopper blade still whirring outside. I was on my knees in the mud and concrete. My Italian suit was ruined. My hands were stained with the blood of my only child. Time of death, the doctor muttered, his voice hollow, defeated. 11:42 p.m. No, I whispered. The doctor reached out to switch off the machine. To silence the scream of the monitor. Don't touch it. I roared. I scrambled to my feet, slipping on the wet floor, lunging toward the glass partition. I burst into the operating theater. The air was freezing cold inside. She is gone, Mr. Kirubi, the doctor said, stepping back, his hands raised in surrender. Her heart has stopped. The trauma, the blood loss, it was too much. She is 24 years old. I screamed, grabbing the doctor by his blood-soaked lapels. I shook him violently. She is not done. Do you hear me? I am Jackson Kirubi. I do not accept this. I do not accept failure. Sir, I am a doctor, not a magician, he shouted back, fear in his eyes. The brain has been without oxygen for 2 minutes. Even if we restart the heart. Restart it. I shoved him toward the defibrillator. Charge it again. It's useless. I said charge it. I grabbed the paddles myself. They were heavy, plastic, slippery with gel. If you won't do it, I will. Jackson, stop. Mama Sarah was at the door, her face a mask of agony. Let her rest. Do not desecrate her body. She is not resting. I yelled, tears blinding me. She is fighting. I felt her grip. She made me promise. I looked at the body of my daughter. She was so pale like marble. The tube from my arm still hung loosely from the stand, a lifeline cut short. Charge to 300. I commanded the trembling nurse. Sir, that's dangerous. Do it. The nurse turned the dial. The machine whined, a high-pitched descendance of energy. I looked at Njeri's face. Come back, I prayed. I will give it all away. The billions, the buildings, the jets. Take it all. Just give me her. Clear. I screamed. Thump. Her body arched violently off the table, then slumped back down. I stared at the monitor. The line remained flat. Beep. The silence returned, heavier than before. The doctor looked at the floor. The nurse made the sign of the cross. I stood there, panting, the paddles hanging from my hands. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that I had never known. It was the feeling of absolute, irreversible loss. The kind of loss that money cannot fix. The kind of loss that makes a man hollow. I dropped the paddles. They clattered onto the floor. I reached out and touched her cheek. It was cooling already. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice breaking into a sob. I'm so sorry I was late. And then, a sound. Not from the machine. Not from the storm. From the corner of the room. Wah, wah, wah. The baby. The nurse was holding the bundle of towels. The infant, who had been silent, suddenly let out a cry that pierced the gloom. A cry of life. A cry of hunger. A cry of fury. At that exact second, as the baby screamed, the monitor behind Njeri's head hiccuped. Beep. The doctor's head snapped up. We froze. 3 seconds passed. Beep. The line on the screen jumped. A jagged, weak, beautiful mountain appeared on the green grid. Beep. 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 A pulse, the doctor shouted, diving back to the table. We have a rhythm. It's faint, but it's there. Sinus bradycardia. She came back, the nurse whispered, staring at the crying baby. The baby called her back. Don't just stand there. I bellowed, the adrenaline surging back into my veins like fire. Stabilize her. Epinephrine. Push 1 milligram, the doctor ordered. Get the fluids running wide open. We need to pack the abdomen. I stepped back, collapsing against the tiled wall, sliding down until I hit the floor. I watched them work. It was a blur of motion. I listened to the duet of the monitor and the baby, the heartbeat of the mother and the cry of the son. She was alive. 1 hour later. The transfer was a military operation. Otieno had coordinated with the Nairobi hospital. An advanced trauma ambulance, equipped with a mobile ICU, had managed to navigate the mud roads to the edge of the football pitch. We moved her on a stretcher, covered in thermal blankets, surrounded by a phalanx of my security guards. The rain was still falling, but the storm was breaking. As we exited the alleyway onto the muddy field, the night exploded with flashes. Flash, flash, flash. Mr. Kirubi, is it true? Who is the woman? Why are you in Kibera? The paparazzi. They were here. Like vultures sensing a carcass, they had swarmed. Back. Get back. Otieno shouted, shoving a cameraman into the mud. I walked beside the stretcher, my hand resting on the rail, my eyes fixed on Njeri's unconscious face. I didn't care about the cameras. I didn't care about the mud on my face or the blood on my shirt. Mr. Kirubi, do you have a comment? A reporter from the Standard yelled, thrusting a microphone at me. I stopped. I turned to look at them. The glare of the camera lights illuminated my ruined tuxedo. If you block this ambulance, I said, my voice low but projecting with the authority of a man who owned the city, I will buy your news station tomorrow and fire every single one of you. Move. They parted like the Red Sea. We loaded her into the ambulance. I climbed in the back. Mama Sarah climbed in with the baby, who was now wrapped in a clean thermal blanket. Go, I told the driver. Don't stop for red lights. Don't stop for police. Just drive. The private wing of Nairobi Hospital is a different world. It smells of lavender and expensive disinfectant. The floors are marble. The silence is respectful, not oppressive. It was 3 a.m. Njeri was in the ICU, hooked up to machines that cost more than the entire clinic in Kibera. She was in a medically induced coma. The doctors said her condition was critical but stable. Her kidneys had taken a hit, and the blood loss was severe, but she was young. She was a fighter. I sat in the waiting room of the executive suite. I had showered in the private bathroom, scrubbing the mud and dried blood from my skin, but I couldn't wash away the image of her flatlining. I was wearing a fresh change of clothes brought by my assistant, a gray cashmere sweater and slacks, but I felt naked. The door opened. Mama Sarah walked in. She looked exhausted, aged 10 years in one night. But in her arms she held a bundle. He is hungry, Sarah said softly. The nurses fed him formula. He is sleeping now. She walked over and placed the baby in my arms. I froze. I had never held a baby. Not really. I had been too busy building an empire to build a family. He was tiny. Wrapped in a blue blanket. His face was scrunched up in sleep. He had a tuft of dark hair in his mother's nose. My grandson. He has no name, Sarah said, sitting down heavily on the sofa opposite me. Njeri didn't pick one. She said she wanted to see his face first. I looked down at the boy. He felt heavy and light at the same time. He was the weight of the future. Kamau, I whispered. Sarah looked surprised. Kamau? Your father's name? Yes, Kamau. The one who carries the spear. I touched the baby's tiny hand. His fingers curled around my thumb. He will not grow up in a slum, Sarah. He will not know hunger. He will not know what it means to be looked down upon. Money does not make a man, Jackson, Sarah said sternly. You have proved that tonight. You had the money, but it was the baby's cry that saved her. It was God. I know, I said humbly. I know. I reached into the pocket of my discarded jacket, which was draped over a chair. I pulled out the tattered chemistry textbook. The one that had started this whole journey just 12 hours ago. I opened it to the page with the napkin where she had written the silver ion formula. Silver ion catalyst. Stability 100%. She saved me, I murmured. She saved the company. And I almost killed her with my neglect. I looked at Sarah. The water project. The one I was bidding for. The formula she fixed. It's for a national purification system. But the government will only put it in the rich areas first. Westlands. Karen. Muthaiga. I stood up, holding the baby carefully. I walked to the window looking out over the sleeping city. Otieno. I called out. Otieno was standing guard outside the door. He entered immediately. Sir? Get the legal team on the phone. Wake them up. Sir, it is 3 a.m. I don't care. I want to draft a new clause in the contract for the Ministry of Water. What clause? We are doing the project pro bono for the first phase, I said, my eyes hardening. But on one condition. The installation starts in Kibera, then Mathar, then Mukuru. The slums get the clean water first, before the hotels, before the golf courses. If the minister refuses, I will pull the bid and build it myself with my own money. Otieno smiled, a rare, genuine smile. They will say you are crazy, Jackson. Let them, I said, looking down at little Kamau. I am not building a legacy of money anymore. I am building a legacy of life. Meanwhile, across the city in a penthouse that rivaled my own, Caleb Omondi sat in his darkened media room. The glow of the giant television screen illuminated his sharp, reptilian features. On the screen, a news anchor was speaking breathlessly. Breaking news tonight. Billionaire Jackson Kirubi was seen leaving the Temani clinic in the heart of Kibera slums in a dramatic medical evacuation. Sources say he was accompanying a young woman, identified only as a former employee of a local cafe. The screen flashed the image, the blurry photo of me mud-soaked walking beside the stretcher. Caleb paused the video. He zoomed in. He looked at my face. It wasn't the face of an employer helping a staff member. It was the face of a father terrified of losing his child. Caleb picked up a dossier on the glass table in front of him. It was the stolen employment file from the Java house. He had paid the terrified manager 10 times what Otieno had offered just an hour ago. He flipped it open. Name, Injeri Wanjiku. Mother, Wanjiku Kamau, deceased. Father, unknown. Caleb smiled. A cruel, slow smile. Unknown, he chuckled. I don't think so. He picked up his phone. Get me my lawyer, Caleb said into the receiver. And get me the editor of the Nairobi Eye. I have a story that is going to sink Jackson Kirubi. He has an illegitimate daughter. He has been hiding her in poverty while he preaches family values. And the best part? She is the one who wrote the formula he is using to win the bid. Caleb stood up, walking to his balcony. Intellectual property theft, he whispered to the night. If she wrote the formula and she is not an employee, then Jackson stole it. The contract is void. And the company is mine. Back at the hospital, the peace was shattered. The door to the waiting room burst open. A nurse ran in looking pale. Mr. Kirubi. I spun around, clutching Kamau to my chest. What is it? Is it Injeri? No, sir. She is stable. It's the news. She grabbed the remote and turned on the TV mounted on the wall. Breaking news, fraud allegations rock Kirubi Corp. The headline screamed in red. Documents leaked to this station alleged that the new miracle water formula submitted by Kirubi Corp was not developed by their scientists, but stolen from an uncredited, impoverished student living in Kibera. Rival CEO Caleb Omondi is calling for an immediate investigation and the arrest of Jackson Kirubi for corporate espionage and fraud. I stared at the screen. Caleb. He hadn't just found out. He had twisted the knife. He wasn't just attacking me. He was attacking Injeri's work. He was going to drag her name through the mud, call her a victim of theft, and use her to destroy the very project she wanted to save the slums with. I handed the baby to Mama Sarah. I buttoned my blazer. The grief in my eyes was gone, replaced by a cold, volcanic rage. Otieno, I said quietly. Sir? Prepare the car. And call the minister. Where are we going? We are going to war, I said. Caleb wants to talk about formulas? I am going to teach him the formula for pain. Mr. Kirubi, the stock has dropped 14% in the last hour. The board of directors is calling for an emergency vote of no confidence. They want you out by noon. I stood in the VIP suite of Nairobi Hospital, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. I looked like a ghost. My eyes were sunken, my jaw unshaven, my clothes, a fresh suit Otieno had brought, felt like a costume. Behind me, the machines beeped rhythmically, keeping Injeri alive. My daughter lay still, her chest rising and falling with the help of a ventilator. She was fighting a war inside her body while I was about to fight a war outside. Let them vote, I said, not turning around. They are sheep. They get scared when the wind blows. Sir, Otieno said, stepping forward. He held up a tablet. It's not just the wind. It's a hurricane. Caleb Omondi is live on Citizen TV right now. He is at the Ministry of Water. He is demanding that your bid be disqualified and that you be arrested for exploiting the vulnerable poor for corporate gain. I clenched my fist. Turn it on. Otieno tapped the screen. Caleb's face filled the room. He was wearing a pristine white suit, standing behind a podium with the ministry seal. He looked like a savior. It is a tragedy, Caleb was saying, his voice oozing fake sympathy. Jackson Kirubi, a man we trusted, stole the intellectual property of a destitute girl living in Kibera. He took her genius, slapped his name on it, and left her to die in a clinic without power. Is this the man we want building our nation's infrastructure? I say no. Justice for Njeri. The audacity. He was using her name, the name he didn't even know existed yesterday, as a sword to cut my throat. I walked over to the bed. I brushed a stray braid from Njeri's forehead. Her skin was still pale but warm. He thinks he can speak for you, I whispered to her sleeping form. He thinks you are a victim. He doesn't know you are a Kirubi. I bent down and kissed her forehead. I have to go now. I have to go and tell them who you really are. Keep fighting, my love. I will be back. I stood up. The grief evaporated, replaced by cold, hard steel. Otieno, I barked. Ready, sir. Get the convoy. We are going to the ministry. Sir, the press is swarming the place. It will be a riot. I adjusted my tie, checking the knot in the mirror. I looked like the titan of industry again. The predator. Good, I said. I want witnesses. The Ministry of Water headquarters is a fortress of concrete in the Upper Hill District. By the time my convoy of 3 black SUVs arrived, the rain had stopped, but the streets were flooded with people. Reporters, protesters paid by Caleb, and curious onlookers blocked the gates. They were chanting, "Thief! Thief! Thief! Ram the gate if you have to," I told Sunday through the intercom. No need, Mzee. Look. The gates opened slowly. The security guards recognized the Kirubi 1 license plate. They knew who paid their Christmas bonuses. They let us in. We pulled up to the main entrance. I stepped out. The flashing lights were blinding. Microphones were thrust into my face like spears. Mr. Kirubi, did you steal the formula? Is the girl really dying? Are you stepping down? I ignored them. I walked straight ahead, Otieno and his team cutting a path through the mob like an icebreaker ship. We entered the grand hall. The atmosphere inside was tense. The Minister of Water, a stern woman named Dr. Aking, was sitting at the head of a long table on the stage. Caleb Omondi sat to her right, looking smug. The entire press corps was seated in the audience. Caleb was in the middle of a sentence. And that is why, Madam Minister, Omondi Group is the only ethical choice for this contract. We innovate. We do not steal. Slam. The double doors at the back of the hall swung open. Every head turned. I walked down the center aisle. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Click, clack, click, clack. Jackson, Caleb said, his smile faltering slightly. We didn't expect you. The police are on their way to take your statement regarding the fraud. Shut up, Caleb, I said calmly. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried to the back of the room without a microphone. I walked up the stairs to the stage. I stood at the podium right next to him. I looked at the minister. Madam Minister, I said, bowing my head respectfully. My apologies for the lateness. I was attending to a family emergency. A family emergency caused by your negligence. Caleb shouted, standing up. He pointed a finger at the cameras. Look at him. The arrogance. He admits nothing. I admit everything, I said, turning to face the cameras. The room went deadly silent. Even the shutters of the camera stopped clicking for a second. Caleb blinked. You admit you stole the formula? I admit that the formula for the silver ion water purification system was not written by me, I said clearly. I admit that it was written by a 24-year-old woman named Njeri, on a napkin in a cafe, because she is smarter than my entire engineering department combined. A gasp rippled through the audience. You see, Caleb crowed, throwing his hands up in victory. He confesses. It is theft. It is fraud. Disqualify him. It is not theft, I continued, my voice rising, if it stays in the family. Caleb froze. What? I looked directly into the lens of the main camera. I wanted Njeri to see this if she woke up. I wanted the whole world to know. The woman who wrote that formula is not just a waitress, I declared. She is not a charity case. She is my daughter. Boom. The room erupted. Reporters jumped to their feet. Questions were shouted. The minister's jaw dropped. Lies. Caleb screamed, his face turning purple. He is lying to save his skin. He has no daughter. He is unmarried. He is childless. Otieno, I said. Otieno stepped onto the stage. He was holding a document. He handed it to the minister. This is a copy of her birth certificate, retrieved this morning from the civil registry, I explained. Mother, Wanjiku Kamau. Father, Jackson Kirubi. Signed by me 25 years ago before I lost my way. I turned back to the crowd. I did not know she was working in that cafe. That is my shame. That is my sin to carry. But when I found her, she didn't ask for money. She gave me the solution to clean the water because she grew up drinking the poison in Kibera. She cared about the people while we in this room cared about the profits. I looked at Caleb. He was shrinking. He looked small. You call it intellectual property theft, Caleb? I call it a family inheritance. She is the rightful heir to Kirubi Corporation. Her mind is the future of this company. And frankly, her formula is the only one that will work. Yours. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. It was the report on Caleb's formula, the one Jerry had warned me about in Chapter 1. Your formula uses a chlorine stabilizer that becomes toxic at 28 degrees Celsius, I revealed. If the ministry signs with you, you will be poisoning half the children in Mombasa by Christmas. I slammed the report onto the minister's desk. My daughter saved me from making a mistake, I said. And she just saved this ministry from committing a massacre. Caleb scrambled to grab the paper. This is proprietary data. You can't. It is public safety. Dr. Aking, the minister, shouted, standing up. She looked at the report. Her eyes widened. She glared at Caleb. Mr. Omondi, is this true? Did your trials fail in the heat? Caleb stammered. He looked for an exit. But the cameras were zoomed in on his sweating face. Get out, the minister hissed. Caleb looked at me. His eyes were full of hate. This isn't over, Jackson. The board, the scandal. The scandal is over, I said coldly. Because the truth is out. Now get out of my sight before I buy the building you live in and evict you. Caleb Omondi, the man who wanted to be king, grabbed his briefcase and fled the stage, chased by a pack of reporters hungry for his blood. I stood alone at the podium. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The secret was out. Mr. Kirubi, the minister said, her voice softer now. If this is true, if your daughter is the architect of this solution, where is she? She is in the hospital, I said, my voice cracking slightly. She is fighting for her life. I looked at the cameras again. And to the board of directors watching this, I said sternly, if you want to vote me out, go ahead. But know this, the formula belongs to Njeri Kirubi. If I go, she goes. And the solution to the water crisis goes with us. I turned and walked off the stage. The ride back to the hospital was silent, but it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of victory. I checked my phone. The stock price of Kirubi Corp had stopped falling. In fact, it was ticking up. The comments on social media were flooding in. Hashtag Father of the Year? Maybe not, but he stepped up. Hashtag Njeri Kirubi, the genius of Kibera. Hashtag water for everyone. I didn't care about the likes. I only cared about the beep. I ran back up to the ICU. Mama Sarah was sitting in the chair holding baby Kamau. She looked at me as I burst in. You were on the television, she said. You shout too much. Did you hear what I said? I asked breathless. We heard, she said. A small, rare smile touched her lips. You told the truth. Finally. I walked over to the bed. Njeri was still asleep. The machine was still breathing for her. I did it, Njeri, I whispered, taking her hand. I told them. Everyone knows your name. You are famous. You are the genius of Kibera. I waited. I squeezed her hand. Please, I begged. I fixed the business. I fixed the reputation. But I can't fix you. You have to do that part. Come back to us. Come back to Kamau. Nothing. Just the mechanical hiss of the ventilator. I sat there for hours. Afternoon turned into evening. The rain started again, tapping against the glass. I was dozing off in the chair, my head resting on the mattress near her hand, when I felt it. A twitch. I shot up. Njeri? Her finger moved again. Then her eyelids fluttered. I held my breath. Doctor. Nurse. I shouted, but I didn't take my eyes off her. Her eyes opened. They were foggy, confused. She blinked, trying to focus on the ceiling. Then she turned her head slowly. She saw me. She tried to speak, but the tube in her throat stopped her. She panicked, her eyes widening. Sure, it's okay, I soothed her, stroking her hair. You are safe. You are in the hospital. The tube is helping you breathe. The doctor rushed in. He checked her vitals. He nodded. She is breathing over the machine. We can extubate. It took a few minutes. Unpleasant, coughing minutes. But finally the tube was out. They put an oxygen mask on her. She took a deep, ragged breath. Her voice was a rasp, barely audible. The baby? He is here, I said, crying openly now. He is perfect. Mama Sarah brought Kamau over. She lowered the bundle so Njeri could see. Njeri stared at her son. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached out a trembling hand and touched his cheek. Kamau, she whispered. My little warrior. She looked at me. Her gaze was steady, intelligent, piercing. You came back, she said. I never left, I promised. I was at the ministry. I told them everything. The formula. Your name. I told them you are my daughter. She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing this. Then she opened them and frowned. The deal? She asked. Did you get the deal? I laughed. A genuine hearty laugh that shook my chest. Even on her deathbed, she was a businesswoman. She was definitely my daughter. Yes, I said. We got the deal. But I changed the terms. Changed? How? We are building it in Kibera first, I said. Free of charge. And the project. It is named the Njeri Initiative. She looked at me stunned. Her defenses crumbled. The hard shell she had built to survive the slums melted away, leaving just a young woman who needed her dad. Thank you, she whispered. No, I said, kissing her hand. Thank you. You saved me. The door opened. Otieno stood there. He looked worried. Sir, he said softly. I am sorry to interrupt. But there is someone here to see you. I told you no press, I said, annoyed. It's not the press, sir. Otieno stepped aside. A police officer walked in. A superintendent. He took off his hat. Mr. Jackson Kirubi? Yes. I stood up, protective instinct flaring. I am Superintendent Mwangi from the DCI, he said gravely. We saw your confession on live television regarding the ownership of the formula. It wasn't a confession of a crime, I said. It was a clarification. That is for the courts to decide, the superintendent said. He pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Mr. Caleb Omondi has filed a formal complaint of corporate fraud and theft. Since you admitted on camera that you submitted a bid using intellectual property that was not contractually yours at the time of submission. Technically, that is fraud. You have to be joking, I said. I am the father. It is family property. The law requires a contract, sir. Not DNA, the officer said apologetically. I have orders to bring you in for questioning. No. Njeri tried to sit up, the monitors beeping frantically. He didn't steal it. I gave it to him. Njeri, lie down. I ordered gently. I looked at the officer. I looked at my daughter. I looked at my grandson. I smiled. It's okay, I said to Njeri. It's just a formality. I have the best lawyers in Africa. I will be out before breakfast. I held out my hands. The officer clicked the cuffs on. Otieno, I said. Stay here. Guard them with your life. Yes, sir. I turned to Njeri. Rest. Get strong. When I come back, we have an empire to run. Together. I walked out of the hospital room in handcuffs, head held high. I was going to jail. But for the first time in my life, I felt like a free man. The floor of a holding cell at the DCI headquarters on Kiambu Road is cold. It smells of unwashed bodies and despair. For a man accustomed to 1,000 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets, it should have been hell. But as I sat on the thin mattress, staring at the peeling paint on the ceiling, I felt a strange sense of peace. I was Jackson Kirubi, the billionaire, the titan, and I was in jail. But for the first time in 30 years, my conscience was clean. Comfortable, Jackson? The voice dripped with malice. I sat up. Standing on the other side of the bars was Caleb Omondi. He was wearing a fresh Italian suit, holding a takeout coffee from the very cafe where my life had changed. I've had worse nights, Caleb, I said, standing up and brushing off my wrinkled blazer. I grew up in Mathar, remember? This is a luxury hotel compared to where I started. Caleb laughed, sipping his coffee. You're putting on a brave face. But you're finished. The fraud charges stick. You admitted it on live TV. By the time the courts are done with you, Kirubi Corp will be a penny stock. And I will be there to buy the scraps. He leaned closer to the bars, his eyes gleaming. Sign the plea deal, Jackson. Admit guilt, step down as CEO, and transfer the water project rights to Omondi Group. If you do, I'll drop the complaint. You can go home to your bastard daughter. My hands curled into fists. Her name is Njeri. And she is not a bastard. She is a queen. She is a liability, Caleb spat. She is the reason you are in here. No, a voice echoed down the concrete hallway. I am the reason he is getting out. Caleb spun around. I rushed to the bars. Coming down the corridor, flanked by Odieno and Superintendent Mwangi, was a wheelchair. Sitting in it was Njeri. She looked weak, wrapped in a thick shawl, and 4 lines still taped to her hand. But her head was held high. She held a sleeping baby Kamau in a sling against her chest. Njeri, I gasped. You shouldn't be here. The doctor said. The doctor said I am stubborn, she interrupted, a small smile playing on her lips. She stopped the wheelchair in front of Caleb. And who is this? Caleb sneered, looking down at her. The waitress? Did you come to serve me tea? Njeri didn't flinch. She reached into the bag resting on her lap. She pulled out a piece of paper. It wasn't a napkin. It was a legal document. This, Njeri said, her voice clear and scientific, is an affidavit. It states that I, Njeri Wanjiku Kirubi, voluntarily provided the silver ion formula to Kirubi Corp as a capital contribution in exchange for equity. It is dated yesterday morning. Caleb scoffed. Fabricated. You can't backdate a contract. You can if there is a witness who can prove intent. Superintendent Mwangi stepped in, crossing his arms. And we have a witness. Who? Caleb demanded. The driver? No, Njeri said. She pulled out her phone. She pressed play on a recording. The tinny sound of a voice filled the jail corridor. It was the manager of the Java House. Yes, Mr. Omondi paid me. He gave me 500,000 shillings. He told me to say the girl was just a cleaner. He told me to destroy the employment records that showed she was a student intern. He said he wanted to bury Jackson. Caleb's face went white. He dropped his coffee cup. It splashed onto his expensive shoes. That is a fake. Caleb stammered. It was recorded by my security team an hour ago, Odieno said, stepping out of the shadows like a grim reaper. The manager was very eager to talk once we told him he was an accessory to corporate espionage. I looked at the superintendent. Officer, I believe making a false police report and bribing a witness are serious crimes? Very serious, Mr. Kirubi, Mwangi said, unlocking my cell door. In fact, they carry a mandatory prison sentence. The door swung open. I stepped out. I didn't look at the superintendent. I walked straight to Caleb. I towered over him. You wanted to buy my company? I whispered. Now you will need that money for bail. Superintendent. Caleb shrieked as 2 officers grabbed his arms. This is a setup. Do you know who I am? Yes, Njeri said softly. You are the man who tried to poison the children of Kenya for profit. And you used the wrong formula. They dragged Caleb away, kicking and screaming. His empire of lies had collapsed in seconds, dismantled by a waitress in a wheelchair. I looked at Njeri. I fell to my knees right there on the jail floor and hugged her. I hugged my grandson. You should be resting, I scolded her through my tears. I can rest later, she whispered, leaning her head on my shoulder. We have a contract to sign, Dad. The water isn't going to clean itself. 6 months later. The sun was shining over Kibera. For the first time in years, the mud didn't smell of sickness. It smelled of wet earth and hope. A crowd of 10,000 people had gathered in the dusty square of Laini Saba. There were drums beating, women dancing in colorful kangas, and children running everywhere. In the center of the square stood a massive, gleaming structure of steel and glass. It was a water filtration station. But it wasn't just a tap. It was a monument. A blue ribbon was stretched across the entrance. I stood on the stage wearing a suit but no tie. I felt lighter. Younger. Next to me stood Njeri. She looked radiant. She was wearing a stunning kitenge dress in royal blue, her hair braided in a complex, regal crown. She held baby Kamau, who was now a chubby, laughing 6-month-old, waving a rattle at the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I shouted into the microphone. Watawa Kibera. People of Kibera. The crowd roared. 30 years ago I left this place, I said, my voice echoing over the rusty roofs. I thought that to be successful I had to leave my past behind. I thought money was the only way to measure a man's worth. I looked at Njeri. She squeezed my hand. I was wrong, I continued. I built towers in the sky but my foundation was hollow. It took a waitress, a scientist, my daughter, to teach me the true meaning of wealth. I gestured to the shiny new building behind me. Today we open the first of 50 purification centers across the slums of Nairobi. Free water. Clean water. Forever. The cheering was deafening. But this is not my gift to you, I shouted over the noise. This is hers. I stepped back. Njeri wheeled the stroller aside and stepped up to the podium. She adjusted the mic. She looked out at the sea of faces, the people she had lived with, suffered with, and nearly died with. This station uses the Wanjiku method, she said, her voice strong and confident. Named after my mother. It is simple. It is resilient. And it works. Just like us. She picked up a pair of giant golden scissors. I dedicate this to every single mother who has walked 5 miles for a bucket of water. No more walking. We drink today. Snip. The ribbon fell. Fountains turned on. Clear, sparkling water shot into the air. The children screamed with joy, running into the spray. It was a baptism. A cleansing of the old sins. I watched them. I watched my daughter, the vice president of innovation at Kirubi Corp., laughing as the water misted her face. Otieno appeared at my side. He wasn't wearing his earpiece today. He was smiling. We did good, boss, Otieno said. We did good, I agreed. Is Caleb enjoying his new accommodation? Kamatai Maximum Security Prison isn't very comfortable this time of year, Otieno chuckled. He is working in the kitchen. Washing dishes. Poetic justice. Dad. And Jerry called out. Come. Kamau wants to touch the water. I walked down the steps. I picked up my grandson. He grabbed my nose with his wet little hand. You see this, Kamau? I whispered to him. This is your kingdom. Not the boardroom. The people. We walked through the crowd, shaking hands, hugging old women who remembered Wanjiku. Later that evening we gathered at my mansion in Karen. But it didn't feel like a museum anymore. It was loud. Mama Sarah was in the kitchen, bossing the professional chefs around, teaching them how to make proper makimo. We sat on the veranda as the sun set over the Ngong Hills. And Jerry sat with her legs tucked under her, a notebook in her lap. She never stopped working. I was thinking, she said, chewing her pen. The solar panels for the pumps? If we change the angle by 4 degrees and use a graphene coating, we could increase efficiency by 15%. I laughed, sipping my tea. And Jerry, please. Take a night off. You just saved 1 million lives. There are 50 million more, she said seriously. Then she smiled. Besides, I need to save money. Diapers are expensive. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a small, tattered object. It was the notebook. The one I had found in the car that rainy night. Here, I said, sliding it across the table. My old diary? She frowned. Why did you keep this? Open the back page. She opened it. Taped to the back cover was a new photo. It was a selfie we had taken in the hospital. Me and Jerry and the baby. We looked tired, battered, but alive. Underneath it, I had written in my messy handwriting. My daughter and Jerry. The one who taught me that the right formula isn't about chemicals. It is love plus truth equals legacy. She looked up at me, tears shimmering in her eyes. That's the wrong formula, she whispered, mimicking her first words to me. Oh. I raised an eyebrow. What is the correction, Professor? She smiled, wiping a tear away. It should be, love plus truth plus forgiveness equals everything. I looked at the sunset. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the future. Agreed, I said. Now pass me the baby. I think he has a new formula for his diaper that needs urgent attention. We laughed. The sound echoed into the night, louder than any thunder, richer than any gold. I was Jackson Kirubi. I used to be a billionaire. Now I was something much more important. I was a father. The end. Thank you for watching The Royal Griot. What an incredible journey. From a broken glass in a boardroom to a fountain of hope in Kibera. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us bring more African stories to the world. Tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment? See you in the next story.